Anyway, there are those that would say that this year's competition was competitive enough, and it certainly went right down to the wire. Let's see how Mark Pugac viewed the summer.
When Steve James and Hugh Morris walked down the steps at Taunton to open Glamorgan's second innings against Somerset, they knew they were only 11 runs away from winning the championship. 8 balls later, and the Welsh dream had come true. Glamorgan were Britannic Assurance County champions for the first time since 1969. Under the captaincy of Matthew Maynard, Glamorgan had fended off a stern challenge from Kent to end the season 4 points clear at the top. And a key ingredient to their triumph had undoubtedly been the new ball pairing of Steve Watkin with overseas recruit Wako Younis.
Yeah, he's a brilliant bowler. I think he's one of the steadiest bowler, one of the bowler who you can't really keep him out of the game. He's brilliant.
The difference, I think, between our side now and possibly a few years ago is the fact that we've got 4 or 5 bowlers who can take 5 wickets, and Steve Watkin and Robert Croft have shouldered most of the burden of the bowling over the last 6-7 years. And now with Wako Younis coming here, Dean Koska and Darren Thomas had a fantastic season as well. I mean, I think that's the major difference. We really feel we can bowl sides out.
Yeah, I think we've got a great attack, the balanced attack with 2 spinners and 3 quickies, and to get 4 bowlers over 50 wickets, that's a championship winning side. We knew that we had to bowl sides out twice in the game to win matches, and our batters scored so quickly that we always had enough time to bowl sides out, and in the end, that's why I think we won the championship.
When the season kicked off, Glamorgan had a daunting set of early fixtures.
We had Warwickshire down here, first game, then we had to travel up to Headingley, and then straight on to Canterbury, and we had by far the better of a game here against Warwickshire. Hugh Morris batted brilliantly, career best 233. Steve James got 8 shot and Adrian Dale got 100. And after bowling them out for 150, we posted a sizable total and then really had them on the back foot, 100 for 4. So that was a great start for us. Unfortunately, the rains then came down. And up at Headingley, we set Yorkshire 310 from lunch onwards on a wicket that was offering for the bowlers.
Against Yorkshire, Steve James made 109 before being run out by Michael Vaughan, and only a burst of 4 wickets in 10 balls from Darren Gough prevented Glamorgan from reaching another score near 500.
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously, it's going to be a big year for Darren this one. He had a good winter, and it was going to be a big summer for him, so I think he was really keyed up for that game. He bowled fast, and it was a difficult game for us.
Yorkshire struggled to 200 for 9, with Wako Younis taking his first wicket for his new county, Anthony McGrath the victim. But further rain meant that another strong position went begging. But Glamorgan didn't have to wait long for their first championship win of the season. It came against Kent at Canterbury in what proved a key fixture for both sides.
Yeah, I think at that stage we knew that was going to be a tough game, and we were very keen to win that. I seem to remember that game. Martin McCaig bowled very quickly on the first morning. I think he had me dropped early on. I managed to get about 40 odd, but that was a very good win for us.
It was a win which owed much to the batting of the Glamorgan tail. Kent drew first blood with fiery spells from Martin McCaig and Dean Headley. At 108 for 6, Glamorgan faced their first crisis of the season. But Robert Croft and Wako added 63 for the 7th wicket as the Kent attack lost its grip. And then Darren Thomas proved what a useful player he is with a quick-fire 46.
I think at one stage in the first innings we had them 130 odd for 6. Things didn't quite go our way. We didn't bowl particularly well at that stage of the game, and they scored more runs than they should have done.
Thomas and Steve Watkin added a further 59 for the 9th wicket. This tail-end contribution helped Glamorgan post a respectable total of 279, and it was to prove decisive. Kent made only 154, but fought back in the second innings through Paul Strang, who took 4 for 59, and Matthew Fleming 4 for 28. The damage, though, had been done in the first innings, and a target of 319 was too much. Glamorgan took the spoils, and crucially, 22 points. But Glamorgan didn't have things all their own way. Kent won their next 4 matches to go top of the table, hotly pursued by Middlesex, Essex and Gloucestershire. Jamie Hewitt took 5 for 59 for Middlesex against Northants, and then Richard Johnson finished off the tail, and Middlesex moved into the top 3. Essex's good early season form was based on consistent batting throughout the top order and excellent bowling from Ashley Cowan and Peter Such. Ronnie Irani's second innings 100 wasn't enough to beat Yorkshire, but Paul Grayson's innings of 105 helped Essex to a comfortable 147-run win over local rival Surrey at the Oval. Graham Gooch also made 50 in that match, but his form was well below that of previous seasons, and it wasn't long before he announced his retirement from the game. But whilst one G was bowing out, two other Gs were by now fighting it out at the top of the championship table. Glamorgan and Gloucestershire had both overhauled Kent and Essex and the rest on the back of some impressive wins, and both had a star bowler to thank for their rise. Gloucester's 164-run win over Yorkshire at Headingley was inspired by a 10-wicket haul from left-arm seamer Mike Smith. Smith's consistent form throughout the season earned him an England call-up for the 4th Test against Australia, and he was to finish the season as the leading wicket-taker in the country, with 83 wickets at 17.63. Yorkshire's batsmen certainly had no answer to Smith's in-swing, as he followed up figures of 6 for 58 in the first innings with 4 for 74 in the second. Glamorgan's spearhead was at this stage, unsurprisingly, Waqar Younis, now in full cry. Lancashire was skittled for 51 at Liverpool, with Waqar taking 7 for 25, and then Sussex could only muster 54 and 67 at Swansea. The Pakistani's first innings figures of 8 for 17 were his best in first-class cricket.
I know it's one of those days when the ball was swinging and it was like damp and it was just swung and got all the wickets. I was a bit lucky, you know, didn't get many drop and they caught all these in the slips.
Waqar's performed superbly in some games. The Sussex game where he got 8 for 17, I think it was. The Lancashire game where he got 7 for 25. Both career bests and both following each other in the games. The following game from that was down at Swansea again against Gloucester. And I think this was a big turning point. Obviously, we were both up there in the championship, first and second, and we turned them over and did a 10-wicket win on them, and that was a big result for us and gave us the belief then to carry on for the rest of the season.
In that game, Hugh Morris scored another big 100 before falling LBW to John Lewis, and then an unbeaten 76 from Tony Cottee and useful runs from Adrian Shaw allowed Maynard to declare at 400 for 5. The Welsh attack, well supported by close catches, scythed through the Gloucester batting, and left-arm spinner Dean Koska was proving a more than able partner for Robert Croft.
Yeah, I mean that makes a difference. I don't think since we had Ravi Shastri bowling at his best and Rodney Ontong, if we had two spinners who could bowl in unison and bowl, you know, all afternoon for us. And these two can, because they are both attacking bowlers, but they also keep it under three and over as well. And as a captain, that's vitally important. And no, it's a pleasure to have them both in the side.
Kent had kept their challenge going despite an alarming lack of runs from the top order, and their first innings against Leicestershire at Canterbury was typical of their season so far. Runs came fast and furiously from Ed Smith, Dave Fulton and Trevor Ward, but at the same time wickets fell to loose strokes. When Ward was caught and bowled by Adrian Pearson, Kent found themselves in the perilous position of 126 for 5. Matthew Fleming's wicket left the home side at 162 for 6, but there was no sign of panic. Kent's low order had performed heroics in previous weeks, with century stands for both the 9th and 10th wickets, and against Leicester the tail would wag once more.
The first half of the season, our top order, they openly admitted, you know, they weren't scoring runs and they were struggling, but the depth of our squad and our team is that, you know, we do bat all the way down and we can score runs. And then, you know, towards the end of the season, they started scoring runs, and that made the job easier.
Mark Elam made his first 100 at Canterbury, and Paul Strang 82, as the pair put on 145 for the 7th wicket. Strang had an excellent first season for Kent.
Really balanced the side, he really balanced the bowling attack. Great attitude towards the game. You know, he's a natural winner, he really wants to win, he's a great trier. Took vital wickets at vital times and scored some very, very useful runs. He was a great asset to the side.
Even Strang's departure proved a false dawn. Skipper Steve Marsh had already made a century against Sussex, and with Elam added another 146 for the 8th wicket.
Mark Elam's had an outstanding season. The cornerstone of our side, particularly from a batting point of view. I think it's a tragedy that he's not involved with the English setup, because he's got a lot of attributes that would you know, fare well in Test cricket, so hopefully he'll get another opportunity.
Elam eventually played on to young Jimmy Ormond for 139, but Kent ended the second day on 498 for 9, with Marsh unbeaten on 98. From such a strong position, it was a surprise when Kent lost ground to their rivals. Mike Smith was again the destroyer for Gloucester against Derbyshire at Cheltenham, and whilst his team were wrapping up an innings victory, Kent were losing. The weather had forced Kent to make 2 declarations, and Leicester took advantage of favourable conditions to force an unlikely 6-wicket win. Overseas recruit Australian Sean Young took the wickets of Kim Barnett and Kevin Dean with successive balls, having already scored 237 in his side's only innings, but he had to share the individual honours with Smith. The left-armer finished things off by bowling Devon Malcolm to finish with match figures of 10 for 106. Gloucester were being led for the first time this year by all-rounder Mark Alleyne, who himself was having an outstanding season. Against Durham, Alleyne took 5 for 14 and then put on 205 with Jack Russell for the 6th wicket, scoring 165 himself as Gloucester again won by an innings. Russell made 1,000 runs for the first time in 1997, and his unbeaten 103 against Durham helped take his side top of the table at the start of August. Indeed, such was the consistent form of Russell and Alleyne that each would collect £4,000 as White & Mackay wicketkeeper and all-rounder of the year. But as the season reached its climax, it was Kent and Glamorgan who held their form best. Alan Wells and Matthew Fleming scored their first hundreds of the season as Kent thrashed Essex and Canterbury week. Glamorgan had a rare hiccup when they lost to Worcestershire, but were soon back to winning ways against Northants at Abergavenny. Steve James made scores of 103 and 113 to make it 3 centuries in 3 innings. Leader in the averages for most of the season, his form earned him both the PCA and the White & Mackay Player of the Year awards. Whilst Glamorgan were completing a 6-wicket win against Northants, Kent suffered heartache at Taunton. Somerset's Simon Eccleston proved a stumbling block with scores of 123 and 94. And despite centuries from Mark Elam and Graham Cowdery, the spin of Mushtaq Ahmed and Simon Hertzberg kept Kent to 449. Agonisingly, Kent fell 1 run short of the 161 they needed for a last innings win.
You know, Taunton, where we possibly needed 7 off the last over, and we ended up tying the game. And it's probably my fault. I only got 2 off the last ball instead of 3, and you know, those 8 points would have won us the championship.
Nevertheless, Kent's title hopes were revived by a convincing win against Gloucestershire, which effectively put Mark Alleyne's side out of the race.
You know, Trevor Ward then scored 160 against Gloucester, you know, which helped win us the game. Again, it was a crunch game. Both sides had to win, and we won that game comfortably.
Trevor Ward's season best 161 not out set up the victory, but it needed the bowlers to finish the job off. Kent were by now without Martin McCaig, but their strong squad dealt well with various injuries and England call-ups throughout the season.
We've had Ben Phillips, Julian Thompson, Alan Nicholson's come in for the last few games, and you know, they've come in not just to fill a spot, they've actually performed admirably for us. You know, they've taken wickets, and that's been the great strength of our squad this season.
There was an added bonus for Kent when Glamorgan failed to beat Surrey at the Oval, despite having a first innings lead of 234. Graham Thorpe was missed by Tony Cottee in the 80s, and he went on to turn the match on its head with a career best 222. Surrey were eventually dismissed for 487, 253 ahead, but Glamorgan turned down the run chase and settled for a draw. Surrey weren't happy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has been made of that. There's been a lot of quotes afterwards from the Surrey guys. We were obviously in a very good position in that game, but Graham Thorpe played probably one of the best innings I've seen, you know, against us. Probably the best innings we had played against us all season. And they probably got a few too many runs, and we didn't feel we could get those runs on that wicket, which was turning a lot. I was injured, Adrian Dale had a bad back, and we made the decision we were going to settle for 3 points. And the draw, which in the end proved quite vital, you know. Surrey were a bit miffed because that obviously put them out of the championship race, and they said a few things about us and about our game, which in the end probably spurred us on a bit more in those last 2 games, to be honest.
But Glamorgan had an ace up their sleeve in the shape of Matthew Maynard, now playing his best cricket of the season. And in the last 2 matches against Essex and Somerset, he was a match winner.
He scores so quickly when he goes to the wicket. We know we're going to see some exciting cricket, and but I think this year he's played so much more responsibly than probably has done in the past. I think the last 3 games he's played magnificently well and got us into match-winning positions, and in effect given us so much time both sides out that we've won games.
Maynard made scores of 71 and 75 not out to carry his team to a 7-wicket win at Cardiff, But Kent, 12 points clear, found themselves in difficulties against Yorkshire, whose recent good form had carried them into the top 3. Kent initially held the upper hand, having Yorkshire 137 for 6. But Darren Lehman with 87 and Darren Goff with 58 ensured the leaders had a match on their hands. Mark Elam ended the resistance with 3 late wickets to finish with 4 for 62. Kent managed a first innings lead of 62, but it was in the second innings that they fell apart. Chris Silverwood followed first innings figures of 7 for 93 with 5 more wickets to leave Kent at 48 for 5, chasing 240 to win. It took a responsible partnership of 99 between Fleming and Elam to salvage a draw. Glamorgan now led the table by a single point.
Other years we'd have been perhaps bowled out in that situation, but this year, you know, we got to a situation where it was 40 off for 5 and we said, you know, let's try and save the game. We did. We got 3 points for the draw and kept us in the hunt for the championship, so, and also put Yorkshire out the frame.
And so to the last round of matches. Kent hosted Surrey at Canterbury, whilst Glamorgan travelled to Taunton. It was Kent who had the best start in the heat haze, skittling Surrey for 124, with Julian Thompson taking 4 for 33. But batting was no easier for the home side, who barely scraped past 200. The umpires saw enough devilry in the pitch to report it to Harry Brind. Meanwhile at Taunton, the Welsh were on top as Wackar dismissed Piran Holloway and Simon Eccleston for ducks and returned later to end the resistance of Mark Lathwell and Michael Burns. Somerset were dismissed for 252. It was now that Maynard took centre stage. His 142 was scored at quicker than a runner ball, and with Hugh Morris, he took charge of the match.
So when we went out to bat, well, we just batted so positive, scored a 5.5 and over for most of the time. And as I say, you score that quickly, you've got so much time to bowl the side out and you put so much pressure on your opposition that you win games.
We lost 2 sessions to the weather on the Friday, and fortunately got quite a few runs in the last session, and set up, you know, so we could actually bat then on Saturday morning and throw the bat at the ball. Great to see Robert Croft smack 80 odd, and Adrian Shaw came with a valuable 53, and Hugh Morris continued his knock from the days before.
Such was Glamorgan's dominance that Kent could only pray for rain in the West Country. But they had to concentrate on their own game, where Alex Stewart with 170 and Darren Bicknell 130 were now in full cry. Their partnership of 219 seemed to have extinguished Kent's chances, but a third-day revival saw 8 Surrey wickets fall for 83 runs. Dave Fulton then shepherded Kent to the brink of victory with his maiden championship 100, and Matthew Fleming supplied the final salvo.
We fought hard. We came back this morning. You know, it could have been a situation where we were completely battered out of the game and it was a case of, you know, just batting for pride. But you know, we put our efforts in this morning, bowled them out very well, and knocked off a good target on a wicket that perhaps, you know, at the end was just starting to turn a little bit, was wearing, but I thought in the end was a good cricket wicket.
But news from Taunton was not good, as Somerset's wickets tumbled to Darren Thomas.
Darren Thomas then came in and got 5 middle-order wickets for us, which was a tremendous achievement.
No, we didn't really panic, and I think that, you know, until possibly the last 3 or 4 wickets where we needed them, we started getting inching closer to that championship title, and we probably got a bit edgy then, but you know, it all went right in the end.
Dean Cosker's appeal was upheld and the championship was all but secure.
A Welsh win at anything is always a great celebration, full of singing, full of drinking, and you know, we savour all those moments.
And for Kent, a third runners-up spot of the season was little consolation.
I'd have been more satisfied with 3 wins, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, a lot more satisfied. Even with a couple would have been better. But having said that, I'm satisfied that we've competed consistently for a long period of time, and that we've always been in there. And you know, we've had the opportunity, but we've got to create that again and take the final step. That's the challenge.
Well, that's 1997 for you.